Welcome to week number 5's lecture. I'm going to be doing this a little differently today. I'm going to be showing you some information that I'd like you to be able to see to have a better understanding of how to prepare for quizzes. And although this is for week 5, I'm going to make the video available to people who were in earlier weeks on an optional basis. So maybe you'll decide to look at it before you even get to week 5. It might help you as far as study skills and being prepared for quizzes. So that's what we're going to do today. And of course, here's our lovely picture from our website, our Canvas website for Anthro 32. Next, we're going to be moving over to look at our study guide. So the study guide for week 5 has to do with the Hyksos, and I'm probably saying that not quite right. So what we're going to do is go over and listen to a couple of ways of pronouncing that tribe's name.
Hidatsa.
And I will repeat again, but slowly. Hidatsa.
Hidatsa. So that's one way. Another way that I found on another site might be slightly more French. The origin of the word, it's kind of hard to know. It means the people by the willows. And they've been trading with English and French people all the way back to the late 1600s. So we're not quite sure, what's the best way to say it?
Hidatsas. Hidatsas.
Okay. All right. So that was interesting. Now we're going to go back to our study guide. So the study guide, as you know, often will show a chapter name, and then sometimes I'll give you facts. Sometimes I'll have the titles or subtitles from the chapter, and then I'll suggest maybe you would like to find 3 facts. So as it mentions in the study guide, that's optional as far as how many facts you decide to record and which facts. I know for some people who are maybe new to having to study in this kind of way, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking or of concern. For other people who are used to doing it through middle school and high school and community college courses, it's basically old hat. But for those who maybe would like hints, that's what we're going to be working on for today. I'm going to now be going over to our textbook. So here's chapter 11, and you'll notice that I did highlight some bits. If you have a book that allows you to use tools, for example, here's the highlighter. You can highlight something and it makes it a little bit easier to find later. Another thing that you can do if you have an electronic book is you can copy something like this first part here, and then you can carry it over and you can put it into your study guide. So for this particular section, settlement 3 key facts, we go back to the book. Here's this group, and here is where it mentions settlements. And how long is the settlement part? Well, it goes for 1 page, 2 pages, and then another half a page or a little less. So almost 2.5 pages, well over 2 pages of material. And that's quite a bit of material. How does one figure out, geez, which facts to include? So I highlighted some that I thought were particularly interesting, and I'll talk to you a little bit about my thought process about that. This product also, this Adobe copy of the book, allows one to put in these little sticky notes. So add sticky note. And I wrote one that said, in our cache, usually we won't be required to remember all the in linguistic language subgroupings and also the details as far as the place names and so on. So you probably have picked up that on the first quiz or two, we haven't had those kind of questions. The book goes into a lot of detail about that kind of thing. And I think it's impossible to remember. There's just, we're 500 pages of information, dozens of tribes. How are you going to remember the 3 subgroups of some linguistical history for the people. It's, pretty difficult. So on what I highlighted, the first part is I didn't highlight any of that. If you did or you want to, that's absolutely okay. But I didn't. Then I came over here and I thought, okay, this is pretty interesting. What's the region like, where they live? So where do they live, how they live, that kind of things. What's their culture like? Those things are important. So for this particular group, they live along river valleys, and they have irrigation that they use to farm, and then it shows what are they farming. So I highlighted that, then I carried it over, and I put that into my notes, okay? Maybe you would have picked something else, that's fine. Maybe you would have not put in as much in your notes, that's fine. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. I'm just showing you the process that I've used. After being in college for an awful long time, oh, probably 12 or 14 years altogether of taking college courses before my wife said, you're done taking college courses, start teaching college. So the next thing you'll see is that there's some notes here about the Missouri Valley. Let's go back to the book. And as we scroll down, there's some more information about what kinds of grasses they eat and what the habitat's like. Those things are important. And then, but here, I highlighted this part about 15 inches of rain per year. And a little bit earlier, we know that they're growing these kinds of things, corn, squash, beans, and sunflowers. So they're doing that near a river and they're irrigating some. And then in my little note, I put, they get less than half as much rain as Sonoma County. That's not very much. For those of you who've had gardens, we don't really get hardly enough water to grow almost anything without irrigating. So, they must be very good farmers, those that tribe, to be able to grow that food and to live off the food. And here I highlighted focusing the subsistence on horticulture, which means farming, hunting, and gathering. So let's go back in to that last bit that I put in here, this last fact. So we're supposed to be trying to find 3 key facts. You could put in fewer, you could put in more. So I found these 3 that I thought were important. And then I'd like you to read this right now. I think that I don't need to read this out loud. I'll just give you a second to read it, because I think it's important for you to have the context of why are we talking about trying to learn 2 or 3 facts? Why aren't we learning? They probably told us 50 facts in there. Why aren't we learning all 50? And how do we know which ones to pick? So I'll be quiet and you can read this right now. So hopefully you've gotten to this part now. The big idea of what's in the text that's in black here is that there is a huge amount of information, 552 pages in the book, plus 15 hours of videos, plus what you're learning about in your mini projects. It's a huge amount. So we have to kind of figure out what is going to be included, perhaps the most important information, but what's going to be included in the quiz questions. So when we look at the syllabus under grading, and we scroll down, you might be wondering, where is this information about how many quizzes, how many quiz questions? It's right there. So we're going to have 400 points for the whole class. 264 of those points come on questions. And for the most part, it's 1 point per question. I mean, there's a couple of essay questions that have a few more points, but basically there's going to be about 264 questions over the whole semester. And even with, 2 or 3 per section, or maybe 1 or 2 facts per page, that ends up being a lot of facts. And this is one of the reasons why in our class, I decided it was best to have an open note, open study guide, open book test. as you probably know, if you haven't prepared and you just start taking the quiz, you don't have time to look up the answers. That's impossible. If you have taken notes, you could, by refreshing your mind right before the quiz, probably not even need to look at your notes. But if you did and you were thinking, well, I don't know, I want to take another look, you can quickly look at your study guide notes and see. And generally speaking, the quiz questions come in the same order as the way they're presented in the book. So there might be a question about subsistence, there might be a question about economics, and so on. So when we get to economies, let's go to the back to the book. I'm scrolling down. There's another bit of information. Well, let's go back up. I'm sorry. I think, yeah. Here we go. Economies. So the first part that's highlighted is right here. Let's look at the study guide. There it is. It's got cut and paste right into there. The next fact that seemed like it was worth knowing. They're all important facts, but the ones to take notes, I put down, if anyone tried to seize the land of another, evil would come upon them. So last, week we talked about ideas of illness and how do people get sick. One of them is being out of balance. And one of the ways you get out of balance is by not following the norms or the cultural rules, and trying to steal land from some other family's farm would be a bad thing. You might make you sick. Talks about how important the women were as far as farming goes. And then this I thought was quite interesting, so I highlighted a big chunk of it. And let's take a look at how that looks. All right, so here, that whole paragraph seemed important and got put into the notes. And there are a few more quotes in here from the book. I'm not quite sure why eagle hunting, which is a sacred activity, ended up in economies. I guess because it has to do with hunting something. Buffalo were the most important animals as far as eating goes, but eagles were very important as far as sacred animal goes. And what it says here in yellow is that they would catch these eagles and they pull out a few of their tail feathers, which I'm sure the eagles don't like, but it doesn't kill them. And then they turn them loose. So back to our study guide. Here it is, this about the eagles and the tail feathers. Okay. Here it is, information about how they hunted the buffalo. And then this section, important because they are taking their food and burying it in deep holes within their lodge, and then hiding the food so that nobody would know where their food was. If they had raiders come in from some other tribe or something, they might, grab something that seemed interesting to them, maybe some nicely beaded outfit or maybe a weapon or something like that, and then they'd run away. Well, they wouldn't actually get their food, which they need to survive because they located in these very deep holes within their lodge. Okay, so that's important. Now, the next question is, what's going to be on the quiz? Well, I'm going to give you a couple quiz questions, no extra charge. This is from this week's quiz. So this is a true or false question. Their economy combined horticulture, which you remember means farming, and foraging, which means hunting and gathering. So does that seem right? Let's go back to the study guide. Hopefully we would remember, but if we don't remember, let's go back up to the top. Well, there we go. It's right there. I'm giving you secrets on how to make your own quizzes if you ever want to do that. Then let's take a look at the next quiz question. Select the answer which is not true. Wow, look at all these sub-answers. So they would put the corn in a hole or a catch or a pit, yeah. They were shaped like bottles, okay, yeah. Some catches were so deep you had to use a ladder, Top was covered and hidden. Yeah. Women protected their fields and encouraged the growth of crops by singing sacred songs. I don't really remember that. I have to look. And farming was a man's job. Women had to stay inside the lodge and cook. Well, not sure about that. So we go back, and lo and behold, here's all the words that are in that quiz question. There's the first one. Here's the next bit, the next bit, the next bit. Well, women did protect the fields. Okay, we've got that next bit. And is there anything about women staying at home in the house? No. So we go back, and which one's not correct? I'm not going to give you the answer to the quiz, but maybe you can guess. All right. And then the next one is when several eagles were caught, they were brought back to camp. Their tail feathers were plucked. Okay, so we just talked about that. I think you probably do remember that, yes, it was one of our notes. They were caught, their tail feathers were plucked, and the bird was set free. It's even pretty much the same language as what was in the book. Nobody expects you to read 550 pages and memorize all the words of the book. That would be crazy. It's more of what facts are either interesting or might be important or give you a view about the culture. And there are many, many, many facts in the book. And what I've just been trying to show you is that, certainly you could have highlighted other parts that might be important to you, but hopefully you would have also included some of the ones that I've selected. Then, if they are put into your study guide, which you can handwrite this in, you could copy it in, you could certainly use a lot less words. If I was doing this by hand, I would just, have a couple of words for each one of these sentences or paragraphs to just remind me. And we would continue that with the rest of this chapter. But there's just the one chapter you need to do for this week, and then Wounded Knee. It was a fascinating video. These notes that I have given you include things which are not necessarily in the video. Okay, so I just copied from Wikipedia what actually happened back then. You don't have to memorize all of this, but the idea of it. And then there were 3 armed groups. This I thought was a fascinating fact. The government shot 500,000 rounds of ammunition. An incredible number. 500 to 1,000 bullets shot for everybody in the village. Now, this is not even in the notes, but it's something to kind of think about. The people who are issued guns with the federal government know how to shoot. They've been trained in how to shoot. Many of the law enforcement at the federal government used to be soldiers. They could kill or injure with fewer than 500 to 1,000 bullets. It kind of makes you wonder what in the world was going on, where they were basically continuing to shoot off and on, nonstop, for a long period of time, with only a very small number of people who were injured or killed. And I'm not saying that this was a good thing. It's just sort of like it would have not been unintentional. For some reason, they decided to lay down fire without actually hitting very many people. And then this tells you what happened afterwards. So these are sort of like additional facts over and above what's in the video. And then there are a couple questions here that I'm not giving you any answers. It's just something you could be thinking about as you're watching the video, and you could write your answers in here. And again, I'm not going to go through every single question in the quiz this week and all that, but I wanted to give you a general overview of how you can use the book to collect some facts, why it is that it's suggested, for example, 3 key facts and a little over 2 pages of material, just to kind of give you an idea. It doesn't say 30 facts or 50 facts or 1 fact, just a few that you consider to be important. And then when you record your notes, you could do it on hard copy paper. You could print these out and you could add handwritten notes. If you have access to an electronic book, you copy and paste, which is a little easier, although the temptation is to start copying and pasting way too much material. And I wanted you to see the direct connection between the facts that were collected and put in the study guide and later how these questions or this information will help you answer the questions in the quiz. And why am I doing all of this? It's because I want you to do really well. And the course outline that we have for our class has a huge number of objectives and facts of what you're supposed to learn about. And these objectives and facts are manifest or visible in our study guides. So all of these things that are listed in the study guide, they go to what the college in their contract with you are saying, we want you to learn about these things. And it's also an agreement that the college with this course outline is making between the California State University and the University of California, who've accepted this class and transfer. So when you finish this class, just like English 1A and some of your other classes, you don't have to worry. You know that if you want to go to a university, they will accept this class because they know that you've learned all these facts well enough to be able to pass the class, perhaps get a B or an A in the class. The thing that would make me happiest of all is if everyone could prove they've learned enough to earn an A. That would be fantastic. All right, so I hope this was interesting to you. If you're watching it before week 5, take another look in week 5 just so you can kind of be refreshed about what we're learning about this week. And if you ever have any questions, please send me an email. Don't post questions to your study groups because they won't get a quick answer. But if you send me an email, then I reply within 2 days during Monday through Friday. Most often, much sooner than that. All right. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you.